So our final section, Elizabethan adventurers. So it's worth just saying right at the start, this is a classic area for interpretation because these adventurers were admired and seen as great exploring and great novelty at the time. They had a great legacy that inspired later explorers, and that's why they probably got a more positive view than what they did. They went exploring, they went into new territories. How successful they were, we'll see in just a moment. So Walter Raleigh is probably one of the most famous ones, and then you can see him pictured on this on this advert here. But of course he wasn't even there, and that's an example of he didn't even go on that voyage because Elizabethan land sailed the Atlantic himself. So he wasn't even there, but it's that image that stays on. Now, large part of this came of it because the Spanish were so successful at it, and the Portuguese were so successful at it. And you can see the Spanish Empire there on the left-hand side. Britain hadn't got anything to rival that. Dr. John Dee, wanted to change all that. He coined the phrase of a British Empire, and he persuaded the Queen that something needed to be done about this. So let's go through some of these adventurers. So Francis Drake, a huge, amazing journey around the world, as you can see in that map on the middle right there. In his ship, the Golden Hind, first Englishman ever to enter the Pacific Ocean. He only the second ever sailor to sail around the world. He plundered, as Francis Drake is wont was to do so. Attacked gold ships, plundered the coast of Chile and Peru, claimed California, calling it New Albion, the old word for England, for Queen Elizabeth. And then he fled, basically, fearing the Spanish would attack back. He fled through the Spice Islands, then via South Africa, modern-day South Africa, via the Cape of Good Hope, knighted on board the Golden Hind, causing fury for the Spanish king, who saw him as very little more than a pirate. So, an amazing journey, claimed lots of gold for himself, gave lots of gold to Elizabeth, didn't really achieve anything long-lasting apart from the legacy of other people wanted to copy him. So Humphrey Gilbert really had ambitions to rival Spain, as a lot of these explorers do. Presented a speech, a book on why he should go and do it, and that was partly to annoy the King of Spain. Once established a trade route, failed in 1579 on one voyage, then he claimed Newfoundland in 1583, although it has to be said other people had already claimed this area too. Poor, horrible conditions, cold conditions, barren conditions. After many deaths, sailors demanded to go home. Gilbert overloaded a ship and it sank in 1583, and Gilbert drowned. Did he achieve an awful lot? Well, he claimed Newfoundland, but nothing long-lasting was established apart from the legacy of others wanting to repeat it. So Walter Raleigh, arguably the most famous, along with Drake, he had explored North America, again trying to find gold for himself, and wanted to go to Asia, so he was trying to find a new route towards Asia, thought that route via North America would do so. He discovered the island of Roanoke and made contact with Native American people, petitioned the Queen, said all the right things, that it should be about spreading the word of God, that there would be new products there, that there were possibilities of new markets, and that there was a possibility of attacking Spanish treasure ships as well. Now, the Queen agreed to it, but actually it wasn't him who led the second voyage. It was his cousin Richard Grenville, who himself was later replaced by Ralph Lane as governor. Harsh winter, conflicts with the Native Americans led to all-out war, and really they had to be rescued in the end. However, the important bit here is that scientists Thomas Harriot and artist John White formed a write-up on this, a document on this brief and true report of Newfoundland of Virginia, named after Queen Elizabeth as a Virgin Queen, and provided knowledge to later allow the first ever successful colony at Jamestown in Virginia. So there's not really an awful lot of trading going on here. There's not an awful lot of gold going on. There's a lot of exploring and trying things and inspiring people for later on, but not an awful lot of success. Raleigh was also involved in searching for the fabled city of Manoa, which is probably more famous by its Spanish name of El Dorado, in Guinea, South America. Went there, explored, didn't find the expected gold, but again, we've got another book here, 1596, Discovery of the Large, Rich and Beautiful Empire of Guyana, meant that there was many more people inspired to empire building, and this would continue into the 17th and 18th centuries. Now, those were mostly involved with explorations to the west, although albeit that they were hoping to link it through to the east. Obviously, the geography of America wasn't fully understood. Now, the trade with the east, the English had learned from what the Spanish and especially the Portuguese had done, that there was a lot of worth in exploring East Asia. Portugal had forts and trading posts. Spain then invaded Portugal in 1580, meaning that the British felt that their own trade with India would be disrupted. So we now get trade links with the Ottoman Empire, which is modern day Turkey, and they formed the Turkey Company in 1581, which was hoping to link up overland, partly overland via the Mediterranean, with India. Ralph Fitch was one of the first Englishmen to go and explore this. He and 4 others, commissioned by the Turkey Company to look for opportunities for trade in this area and potentially with China as well. And this is how little they understood about the world. They hoped that letters from the Queen, Elizabeth, would protect them. And of course, people further away had never heard of Queen Elizabeth. They left in 1583, went to Syria through Baghdad, over through the Persian Gulf to the Portuguese trading post of Hormuz. Their letters didn't do them much good. They arrested spies, they took off the Indian Ocean to Goa, and they then began the journey to the court of the Mughal Empire, Akbar, in northern India. Absolutely astonished by the cloth, the peppers, the spices, the size of the diamonds, including the emperor's new palace at Fatehpur Sikri, which is near Agra. Then he went to the Himalayas. He became the first Englishman to travel through Burma, in through the Malay Peninsula, hearing about the sea trade between China and the Spice Islands, before being halted by those dastardly Portuguese. Right back home, 8 years later, in 1591, again we got a book here, wrote an account of his journey, inspired many others, talked about the people, the customs, the religions, and inspired many merchants to go and explore this area. So again, he brought back some wealth, but we're not talking about well-established wealth. We're talking about largely the inspiration for people to go and do this in the future. Now, this is where we have potentially some actual real change here. James Lancaster, East India Company. He was a veteran of the Spanish Armada, failed to begin with going towards the east, but in 1600 he commanded the expedition of the new East India Company, establishing England's first factory or warehouse, Bantam, in Java in 1602. So right at the end of the Elizabethan period here. And now we finally get this increase in trade. Spices returned back to England. But when he did return, Elizabeth had already been dead for 6 months. No colony in America or Northwest Passage to the east. But in the following 100, 200 years, the East India Company opened many more factories on the coast of India, and by the 18th century it ruled India and became the biggest trading company the world had ever known. So didn't achieve an awful lot in its time. It was right at the end of the Elizabethan period, but inspired things for the future, and that's where part of this legacy comes from, this belief that the Elizabethans were great